Hello and welcome to everyone viewing our presentation of NFHS Rule 7 batting. My name is Mark Kuhn. I'm the rule interpreter and new umpire class instructor for the Wood County Umpires Association in Northwest Ohio. I will be your narrator for this presentation. I would like to take a second to thank the OHSAA and Dan McGinnis for giving us the opportunity to put this presentation together. I would also like to thank Chad Snyder and Chase Hatfield of the Findlay Umpires Association, Jeff Boffman, Joe Miller, and Mike Kuhn of the Wood County Umpires Association, as well as Ben Mauk of the Lima Umpires Association. Without their help and hard work, this presentation wouldn't have been able to be put together. I'd like to take a minute to mention a few things before we get going here. The videos that we're presenting as part of this presentation are used solely for educational purposes. We are showing these videos for the purpose of the play itself and the playing action. Playing level, number of umpires, the mechanics those umpires use, and the actual rules enforced may vary from our rules and mechanics. But again, our focus is on the play and the playing action for the purpose of demonstrating the concept of the rules we're presenting. I would also like to take note that we are not presenting these videos to judge or criticize any of the officials or players shown. We are all officials and have all made our fair share of mistakes. If you have any questions regarding any of the rules or mechanics or concepts presented today, you should contact your local rules and mechanics interpreter prior to contacting Dan McGinnis. That's what your local guys are there for. Should there be a ruling or situation that does require input from Dan or the OHSAA, your rule interpreter should be the one to make that contact. Thank you. Let's begin with our first presentation here by Chase Hatfield of the Findlay Umpires Association. Chase is going to talk about batting order and the issues we have with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. As you said, my name's Chase Hatfield. I am the rules interpreter for the Findlay Umpire Association, and I have the privilege to cover a rule that hopefully never happens during a game, hopefully never happens during the year, and never happens in your career. However, if it does happen, you better know how to handle it. So I want to go through it, and so everyone has the confidence that if it does show up, that you handle it just fine. And that rule is batting out of order. So when talking about batting out of order, it's important to know two terms when reading through the rule book, and those two terms are proper batter and improper batter. And it's fairly simple. The proper batter is the batter that should be up to bat. Now, the improper batter is the batter that is up to bat and shouldn't be there. So those two terms are going to show up a lot in the rule book, and it's important to know what each one of them means. Now, remember when talking about an improper batter and batting out of order that you're only dealing with the players that are currently in the lineup. These are not illegal substitution issues. Illegal substitution follows a different rule set, and you need to familiarize yourself with what an illegal substitute is, because you're going to get an out with that, and it's going to be a little bit different. But today we're going to be talking about batting out of order and not illegal substitutions. So there are four fundamentals of batting out of order, and most of them have to do with the timing of the appeal. So the first fundamental deals with what happens if it's noticed that batting out of order is happening, or the defense appeal happens while the improper batter's up and has a count on him. All you do in those situations is you replace them with the proper batter. So improper batter has an 0-1 count, 0-2 count. They notice it, you just switch it out. There's no penalty there. The second fundamental is if the appeal happens after the improper batter completes his at-bat and before the next pitch, play, or attempted play. If that happens, you're going to get an out. The proper batter is going to be called out, and the next person in the lineup is going to be up to bat. Now, the third fundamental has to do with what happens if it's not noticed or the defensive tries to appeal after the next pitch, play, or attempted play. In these situations, the improper batter becomes legalized. And what that means is whoever's next up to bat after that improper batter is now legalized. Whoever's next will be up to bat in the lineup. And the fourth fundamental has to do with straightening out the batting order in a situation where you're trying to put the proper batter up to bat, however he's on base. You basically skip to the next guy in the lineup. But all of these fundamentals can be kind of confusing to kind of read them. So it's best to cover them in different situations. So let's look at a few situations. The first one's the easiest one. Baker leads off the game, and you notice the lineup card there. That's not going to change for each one of these situations. So look at those, and these situations will make sense. So situation one, Baker leads off the game. As you can see, it should be Abel that leads off the game, but it is Baker, and the offense notices after Baker has a 1-2 count on him. So what do? Pretty simple. This is the one where you just replace the improper batter with the proper batter. So Abel's now going to come up to bat, but he is going to have that 1-2 count on him. So let's look at the next situation. This one, Baker leads off the game again, and the defense notices immediately after Baker hits a single. So what do here? The defense appeals. This one's also simple. This is the one that you're going to get the out. However, the out is going to go to the proper batter, who is Abel. So even though Baker batted, Abel was the proper batter. So you're going to get the out from Abel, and now Baker is going to come up to bat again because he's the next person in the lineup after Abel. Let's look at situation three. Baker leads off the game again, and this time the pitcher takes the rubber and throws over on a typical pickoff play to try to pick off Baker. Then the defense appeals after the pickoff play. Now this goes into a attempted play. So the answer with this one is because the pickoff play happened, it legalizes Baker's at bat. That would be considered an attempted play. Therefore, since his bat's illegal, or his bat's now legalized, Charles is the next person in the lineup, so he becomes the proper batter, and you're going to put Charles in as the proper batter. So let's look at that situation three and make it a little bit different in situation four. So situation four, Baker leads off the game and hits a single. Same thing happens. Now the pitcher takes the rubber. In this situation, Baker takes off to steal second before the pitch occurs, before anything. He just takes off. Now, the pitcher throws over. Let's say Baker gets in a rundown, and at the end of it, Baker ends up at safe at second. Now, the difference is with this one, the defense is going to appeal the batting out of order, and this time you're going to grant it. Now, we said in situation three that the attempted play would legalize his at bat. But the difference is with this particular one is the fact that the offense initiated this play. And since the offense initiated it, you're going to allow the defense to make that appeal. Now, it's important to know in your judgment whether or not the offense have initiated it. This one's pretty simple. He just took off to steal. He initiated that. A simple pickoff play that we had in situation three would not be considered initiated by the offense. All right, now let's look at situation five. So in situation five, we have Abel leading off the game like he's supposed to, and he hits a single. But then we have Charles coming up to bat instead of Baker. And during Charles's at bat, Abel steals second base. Charles then hits a double, which scores Abel. And at that point, the defense immediately appeals that Charles batted out of order after the double. Now, just like in situations before, we're going to do the same thing where the proper batter is going to be declared out, which is Baker, and then Charles would be up to bat again since he follows Baker in the lineup. Now, the question is, where does Abel go? Now, Abel started the improper at bat at first base and stole second during that time. Since he stole during the batting, it doesn't matter. This doesn't matter at all. And since the stolen base has nothing to do with the batting out of order, when you put Abel back on base, he will go to second base and not first base. All right, now let's move on to situation six. Now, in this situation, we're going to look at the bottom of the lineup and look at Irwin. So Irwin's going to lead off the game incorrectly, and he's going to hit a single. Then Hamilton comes up to the plate and he hits a single. Then George comes up to the plate and he takes a pitch, and now he has a 0-1 count on him. And this is when the offensive notices that their lineup card is incorrect. So what do you do in this situation? So the pitch to George legalizes Hamilton's at bat. And since Hamilton's bat is now legal, you would go to the next person in the lineup to find your proper batter. The problem is, in this situation, the next person in the lineup is Irwin, and Irwin's on base. So if you remember Fundamental 4, it'll tell you what you do here. If there's a proper batter that is on base, you literally move to the next guy in the lineup. So since Irwin's already on base, Abel is going to be the proper batter, and he's going to come up to the plate with an 0-1 count. So the thing is and those situations cover the different fundamentals. The thing is, this rule is really not that difficult. Just remember, the timing of the appeal is very important with this rule. Take your time, understand what the defensive coach is appealing. He's going to request time. Granted, get together with the defensive coach. He's going to tell you what he sees and look at your lineup and see what you have. Get with the offensive coach. Make sure everything's right. Keep players away while you're talking to coaches. Keep other coaches away. Have those conversations. Take your time and be confident with how you handle the situation, and you shouldn't have any problems. Just make sure at the very end, both coaches are on board with what's going on and what your ruling is. Be confident with your ruling, and then move on and play baseball. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you letting me go through and explain a little batting out of order for everyone.
All right, thanks, Chase. Next, we're going to move on to Rule 7-2, strikes, balls, and hits. Next up will be myself, Mark Kuhn, and Jeff Boffman. We're going to discuss the strike zone based on Rule 7.2, strikes, balls, and hits. Start off here with our first slide. I will have some video on this one that's actually pretty good. I like to show it at all my local meetings. We'll go over that here in a minute. But definitions, we'll start with definition 235 of the strike zone. The strike zone is that space over home plate, the top of which is halfway between the batter's shoulders and the waistline, the bottom being the knees when he assumes his natural batting stance. The height of the strike zone is determined by the batter's normal batting stance. He crouches or leans over to make the shoulder line lower. The umpire determines the height by what would be the batter's normal stance. So we will cover that here next in this video right here. We also have the width or the height of the strike zone next. We'll play this video for you.
The strike zone is a three-dimensional space. We want to focus on the width of the strike zone. We'll take a closer look at the height of the zone and how the ball is received in other sections of the book. Let's take a look at how wide the strike zone really is. The plate is 17 inches wide, but is that the true width of the strike zone? Depends on how you look at it. The answer is yes, if you think that the rule book requires that the entire ball must pass over the plate for a strike to be called, but it doesn't. The rule book only requires that a part of the ball pass over the plate in order for it to be a strike. With the width of the baseball, you can see that by measurement alone, the width of the zone is almost 23 inches wide. The common misunderstanding is that either of the two baseball images here could be referred to as one ball off the plate. This would in fact be inaccurate, as each of these is shown as an example of a baseball on the plate. This is the official rule book width of the strike zone, and it is indisputable. Still, the strike zone is more than measurable by a ruler. For example, the MLB rating system allows for 2 additional inches on either side of the dish. So in effect, the strike zone is nearly 27 inches wide at the major league level. Let's think about a regulation field. There are 29 inches of open space between the batter's boxes. Now think about our major league strike zone, which was just short of 27 inches wide. While no umpire would say that a legitimate strike zone is batter's box to batter's box, that measurement is only 2 inches bigger than what is acceptable at the major league level. Now let's go back and take another look at those pitches we saw at the beginning of this segment. This pitcher seems to hit the inside and outside borders of the zone. Just be careful about getting too big. Be fair to both the offense and the defense when judging your width of the zone.
All right, as we talked about, the width of the strike zone, always interesting when I show these in my meetings. People who haven't seen it before, how wide the strike zone actually is. We'll talk about it a little bit later in this part of the presentation, but I think coaches and players, I think everybody involved in baseball would rather see the wide, a little bit of a wider strike zone, the true accurate strike zone, fair strike zone, as opposed to being tight. Jeff, any comments?
Just to reiterate what the fellow in the video said, and that is, even at the major league level, it's acceptable to give a couple of inches. We don't want to be too tight. These are high school kids, but the most important thing is, and this is where you'll make your reputation, guys, is just trying to be consistent. Whatever you call a strike on the first pitch of the game should be the same pitch you're willing and will call a strike to end the game with the bases loaded and a full count. Just try to establish consistency, being fair to both the hitter and the pitcher.
All right. That being said, let's move on to our next short video here concerning the height of the strike zone.
The height of the strike zone varies from batter to batter. A 6'3" major league right fielder is not going to have the same strike zone height as a 5'2" high school shortstop. But while the width of the strike zone is the same for every hitter, the height can and will likely vary from one batter to the next. Although the differences are subtle, it's important to note rules that determine the height of the strike zone are different in the high school, college, and pro rule books. Of the two planes in the strike zone, the bottom one is referred to as practically identical in all three codes, but the top plane is quite different. Take a look here. Do we measure the zone from where a batter stands in the box, when he enters his stance, when he takes his stride, or when he swings at the pitch? Again, the rules vary in determining the strike zone. Let's show that batter and indicate where his strike zone really is in all three levels. In high school, it is the batter's normal stance as shown here. In college and pro, it's when he's prepared to swing at the ball or after he has taken his stride. Looking at them side by side, the two zones are quite different. And if the batter takes an exaggerated stride, the difference could be even greater. Now let's return for a closer look at several of our introductory clips. Looking at the first two of these pitches, the umpires do a great job of getting pitches that challenge the lower and the upper boundaries of the zone. But what about that pitch that was caught near the dirt? Let's really examine that one up close. It may not have been caught well, but we deal with that in another section of the video. Take a look at that pitch from another angle. Right across the knees. By rule, that's a strike all day long.
So that last part of the video showing that last strike that's not caught very well, always draw some oohs and ahs again in my meetings. Balls that aren't caught very well, just because it's caught ugly doesn't necessarily mean it's not a strike. Again, we're out there to get strikes. We're out there to call strikes. Get what you can get. Again, because the catcher doesn't frame it up nice for you, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a strike. Jeff, anything?
No, just to reiterate that it's that pitch that somebody from the dugout will say, well, it's in the dirt. My response typically will be, Coach, the catcher took it to the dirt. When it came across the plate, it was at the knees. It's easy for comments, negative comments to come when catchers go to the dirt with their mitt. They're high school kids. A lot of them are going to do it. A lot of them can't frame the pitch well. Just be consistent, always calling that bottom of the zone. Try to get the strike if it is a strike.
Chase or Mike, I don't know if you guys are still on here. You guys, any comments on what we've shown so far?
Yeah, just kind of what to what Jeff was saying. I mean, it's important to get as many strikes as you can, especially if they are strikes. I know, but that catcher's definitely going to help you out a lot more when he's framing pitches. But he's not always going to do that for you. So just know who you got as a catcher and try to work with them too.
Good.
I also agree. I think the consistency is very important. As Jeff was saying, what's at the beginning of the game, you call it the end of the game. Make sure you try and get the strikes you can get. Again, coaches like it when the game is moving along with strikes as opposed to walks.
All right.
The height of the strike zone very low.
All right, by rule, let's talk about the 6 ways a batter can be charged with a strike. First one, pitch enters any part of the strike zone in flight and is not struck at. So obviously the definition that we just covered comes into play here. The pitch is struck at and missed, even if the pitch touches the batter. Cover that one here in the next note down. Pitch becomes a foul when the batter has less than 2 strikes. Pitch becomes a foul tip even on a 3rd strike, or a foul from an attempted bunt. A batter delays entering the box in 6-4-2 or 6-2-4 D1 and 7-3-1. Basically, those 2 rules talks about 6-2-4 D1 talks about the batter not being able to cause the pitcher to balk. If the batter asks for time, the pitcher legally delivers, we'll have a strike. The batter cannot cause the pitcher to balk. So the next one in 7-3-1 is what we'll be covering here in the next rule. Batted ball contacts the batter in the batter's box, foul ball. So those are the 6 ways a batter can be charged with a strike. Going back to the batter delaying getting in the box, this tends to be a problem at the high school level. I know locally here in Northwest Ohio, we have a few schools that the kids struggle with this. They want to step out. Nowadays, they want to look at their wristbands. They want to take their signs. They want to do whatever. It's our job to keep them in the box, keep the game from being delayed. So kind of stepping forward here, Rule 7-3-1, for a batter to delay the game by failing to take his position promptly in the batter's box within 20 seconds, the batter must keep at least 1 foot in the batter's box throughout his time at bat. There are a few exceptions here when the batter can leave. Batter swings at a pitch, he's allowed to step out. Batter is forced out of the box by the pitch. Batter attempts a drag bunt. Pitcher or catcher feints or attempts to play at any base. The pitcher leaves the dirt area, the pitching mound, or takes a position more than 5 feet from the pitcher's plate after receiving the ball. A member of either team requests and is granted time. It's an important part of granted time. The catcher leaves the catcher's box to adjust his equipment or give defensive signals. The catcher does not catch the pitched ball. So this goes back to what we talked about previously. The penalty for this, failure of the batter to be ready within 20 seconds after the ball has been returned to the pitcher, the umpire shall call a strike. If the batter leaves the batter's box, delays the game, and none of the above exceptions apply, the plate umpire shall call a charge strike to the batter. Pitcher need not pitch, and the ball remains live. So again, it's our importance. I know when I have batters come up, usually in that first inning, I try to talk to them, keep them in the box, so it doesn't become a problem later in the game. Get that cleaned up early, and you won't have problems towards the end. Jeff, anything on this?
The only thing I would add, Mark, is the importance of reminding the batter to keep 1 foot in when he's taking his signs. And when I do so, I typically will say, please keep 1 foot in the box. I will protect you. That lets him know that while he's got 1 foot in the box and he's looking at his coach down at third base, that I'm not going to allow the pitcher to deliver a pitch. I will protect you. And just be consistent with it. Remind them if they need it 2 or 3 times. Try to be firm, but at the same time, be polite.
Good. Chase or Mike, any questions?
Yeah, and remember, we're not trying to find a strike here. You know, we're not waiting for them to step out of the box and immediately call a strike. Coach it up, clean it up, work with the batter. Let the batter work with you. And you're not looking for him to jump out of the box and immediately call a strike. Just work with them, and you usually won't have an issue with it at all. And to what Jeff was saying too, the pitcher, the batter, everything needs to happen at your pace as the umpire. So you're right, Jeff. You're not going to let the pitcher pitch while the batter's getting signs, but you're not also going to let the batter take a prolonged period of time to get their signs either. It's just whatever your pace is, and both the batter and the pitcher should respect that.
We get into these little cat and mouse games with certain teams. One team trying to speed it up, one team trying to slow it down. That's a kind of, I mean, there's some gamesmanship involved, but that's kind of stuff we're trying to avoid. Try to avoid issues with. Try to keep a good pace. Work with them again, protect the batters, but don't. On the same note, don't hinder the pitchers. All right.
You know, Mark, there's one thing I would add quickly, and that is you are the home plate umpire. You're the umpire in chief, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with communicating in a soft voice that just the batter and the catcher are both going to hear, and you can give direction and instruct them as to how it's going to be, especially when you feel and you know that the cat and mouse is going on, that the batter wants to step out, the batter wants to take too much time, the pitcher wants to hurry up, the pitcher wants to quick pitch. You can communicate with those guys and help coach them through it, as Chase indicated. There's nothing wrong with that. Most people won't even know what's going on if you do it properly.
And remember, for that batter to step out, I mean, he has to ask for time, and we have to grant time. I typically, unless there's a good valid reason, I know, and this varies. The philosophies on this vary, but for me, unless he has a good valid reason to step out, if the pitcher's trying to freeze him, that's valid to me. But for him just to step out for no apparent reason, I tend to put a stop to that and not grant time in those situations. I'm not saying that other umpires don't. I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good or bad practice. But for me, I need a batter to have a reason. The shoes untied. Again, if the pitcher's freezing him, if the pitcher's taking up all of his time before he delivers, I'll grant that batter time. But for the batter just to repeatedly step out to delay the game, I tend to not let that happen. Okay, move on to the next slide. 7-2-2. Ball is credited to the batter when a pitch is not touched and the bat is not a strike, or when there is an illegal pitch or the pitcher is delayed. Obviously, we all know what a ball is. I did add a mechanics note here to this slide that while there is no official signal for a ball, every pitch should be called. Every called pitch should be verbalized. To call a ball, the umpire should remain in his stance, allow the catcher to catch the ball, process what you saw, verbalize ball. Doesn't need to be as loud as your strike call, but it should be verbalized. The practice of doing this will help promote good timing on your part. It just keeps a good flow to things, a good rhythm. Jeff, I know you have some comments on this.
It's very important that you merit the pitch. Balls should be called balls, as opposed to balls should be assumed to be balls through your silence. It's one thing to not call ball on a pitch that sails over everybody's head, or a pitch that bounces 3 or 4 feet in front of home plate. I get it. But the closer the pitch is to home plate, the more important it is for you to call ball. And there are times when it's a really big pitch and it's really close, that you need to verbalize it a little bit more so than you would ordinarily. But you must merit the pitch by verbalizing ball if it is a ball.
It helps on that close pitch, I feel. When you're calling ball the whole time and you do have that borderline pitch that you ball and you call it a ball, it takes some of the complaining out, and not the, well, he didn't know what to call, so he didn't call anything, and it makes you look better as an umpire, I believe. So
Absolutely agreed.
Chase, anything?
Yeah, one thing I'll add too is when you're calling a ball, and I've seen other umpires do this, and it's probably not the best practice, but they point also, whether it was low or high or inside or outside. You don't need to do any of that. Just call ball. Just verbalize it. And like you guys said, if it's a close call, verbalize it loudly with confidence, and that answers any questions that. Yeah, I know it was close and it was outside and you're going to yell ball, but don't point up or outside. Just call the pitch.
And nor should you verbalize it, ball inside, ball outside, every single pitch.
Yeah.
Save those for the borderline pitches that you can confidently verbalize. That you don't want to do it on every pitch. It kind of takes away from it then. But definitely verbalize ball, but you do not need to verbalize the location.
And if the coach or the catcher is gonna ask where the pitch missed, there's nothing wrong with the answer as long as they're not abusing every time, every pitch, asking. If they're legitimately asking, it's okay to answer those questions. And I'll work with my catcher and make sure, if he asks, was that outside? I'm gonna let him know, yeah, that's a little out.
Yeah.
But don't let them abuse it. They don't need to ask every single pitch that's thrown that's not in the strike zone where that pitch is. You need to put a stop to that, obviously.
Mike, any questions, comments?
No, I agree. I think calling the ball and the strike, like Jeff said, meriting both pitches, keeps your timing good and crisp through the whole game. And again, like you said, when you verbalize that one and you call the ball, it's less likely a catcher is going to hang it out there so everybody's looking at it, letting you know that the catcher thought that was a strike, but you called the ball. By verbalizing the ball, everybody knows it was a ball.
Good. All right, next slide. Foul ball. Foul ball or fair ball hit, which may be a bunt, occurs when the pitch is touched by the bat of the batter who is in the box. All right, so finally, just to recap what we've gone over in the previous slides, I wanted to cover a few balls and strikes, a few basic points. The strike zone is definitely defined in the rule book. However, the most important thing everyone who's ever watched a baseball game is looking for is consistency. I mean, we all hear it out of the stands. Even in situations where we know we're being consistent, the fans may not see it that way. In my opinion, most coaches can live with most strike zones as long as it's the same from start to finish. The frustration comes when the pitch at the knees you called in the first inning suddenly goes away in the seventh. It's a big point. I mean, I've had coaches actually talk to me about that away from the field. It's like, look, we don't care what the strike zone is as long as it's the same from inning to inning. Pitchers can adjust, catchers can adjust, hitters can adjust, and so on. To follow up again with my point above, most coaches are happy also with a larger but fair strike zone over a smaller strike zone. As long as it's consistent throughout the game. Coaches, players, fans are all wanting to see players swing the bat, running the bases, making plays, things of that nature. When we tighten up, we're dealing with high school kids. When an umpire is overly tight with the zone, burn through pitchers. I mean, these are young kids. So call a fair zone. Call the rule book zone, as we saw in the videos, is big. It's a lot bigger than most people give it credit for. So utilize that zone when you're calling balls and strikes. Jeff, Chase, Mike, anything?
Yeah. Bear in mind that these kids will pick up pretty quick if you're calling a tight zone, and the trade-off is they will put a lot more close decision pitches on you, and that's really what I don't want. It's not that I'm afraid to call them. I'll call the pitch. But if I'm too tight, I'm going to be forced to call a lot more borderline pitches just by virtue of the fact that the batters will recognize I'm being tight, and now they can wait for a guy to groove one that they can smash. So if you're a little bit bigger and consistent, you will be forced to call less of those tight borderline pitches late in the game when it's perhaps a game-changing moment.
Chase?
Yeah, just what Jeff said. It's a lot easier to call the pitches when they swing at them, right? So, and that's what people want to see. And I'm not saying call pitches out of the zone strikes or anything, but like you said, it's kind of neat to see the video that you showed and everything. And I think the strike zone is a little bigger than what some umpires really think that it should be. So.
And Mike, I'm sure you have comments on the strike zone.
I agree. Calling strikes really helps. It helps with the flow of the game too, because as Jeff was saying, if you got a tight strike zone, a lot more pitches are going to be taken and looking at, and that's just going to slow the game down. When you're calling a lot of strikes, the batter gets up there. He knows that first good pitch he gets, he's going to take a good whack at. The ball's going to be put in play. Players are going to be moving around for both teams. The crowd's going to be more into the game, and it just makes for a much better game.
Good. Again, we're not saying the strike zone needs to be, nose to toes and necessarily box to box, but it needs to be you need to utilize the whole strike zone. And if you do, it is big. It is sufficiently big. All right. So with that being said, I thought I'd give a few tips on how to be a little bit more consistent. I'm sure a lot of you have your own things that you utilize. These are things I feel are important. Work on your stance and fine tune it. Stances can vary from umpire to umpire. Most stances nowadays are variation on the box. A lot of guys are going to hands on knees to help with their consistency. I encourage that. The scissors. There's very few people working the scissors anymore, and if you look up and down the baseball food chain, you won't see too many guys working the scissors. I mean, it's a difficult stance to work. There's a few guys out there that are pretty good at it, but it's a difficult stance to work. Puts a lot of pressure on your neck. It's been shown it's just not good. It's not a good, safe stance to work in, especially if you're not very skilled at it. If you are still working the scissors, try giving the box or hands on knees a try. Your stance needs to be comfortable and repeatable for 7 innings. I mean, the more consistently you can drop into your stance, head height, width of your stance, the more consistent you're going to be. Good solid stance is probably one of the most important parts of staying consistent. 4 important factors to be consistent. Positioning. Everybody should be working in the slot. Nobody should be working over the top of the catcher. Not a good place to be. Slot is that spot between the catcher and the batter. Basically putting your ear or your nose on the inside corner of the plate. I won't go too much more into that, but if you do have questions as to what the slot is or questions on your stance, I highly recommend that you talk to your local rules interpreter, local mechanics guy, and work on it. Again, being over top of the catcher is not a good place to be. Make sure you're working in the slot. You'll see more pitches. You'll see better. You'll see the ball much better. See the plate much better. Head height. Everything everybody gets taught is your head should be no lower than your chin on top of the catcher's helmet. It's a great starting point. But I'll tell you, over the years, I have gone higher and higher in my stance. And there's other circumstances in a game, a bigger catcher, a smaller catcher, batter lining up tight to the plate, catcher lining up inside. Lots of reasons to work higher, or that you may need to work higher. But basically find a good consistent head height for yourself and stick with it. Learn your strike zone, see pitches, see pitches, see pitches, see pitches, see pitches. Learn your own strike zone, regardless of where your head height is. As long as you're not lower than the catcher. Lose too many pitches, you can't see through the catcher's head. Got to be at least above that. Tracking, keeping your head still, track the ball with your eyes. A lot of newer umpires really struggle with that part of it. Moving your head even the tiniest bit skews your strike zone. The more movement you have, the more inconsistent you'll be. Like everybody always talks about, that camera that moves, you get the blurry pictures. Same thing with your eyes. You start moving around, moving your head. You lose a lot. You lose a whole lot. If you ever have an opportunity to watch yourself work and moving your head around, you'll see. Last thing, timing. Timing is absolutely everything. Takes a while. New umpires tend to be a little on the quick side, and they should be working hard to be on the slow side. You want to find that sweet spot of being too slow or being too fast and being too slow. You need to get right in the middle. You need to see the pitch, hit the catcher's glove, process it in your head, then call it. Ball or strike. Ball, you stay down. Ball. Strike, you come up out of your stance, knock on the door, point, whatever you're going to do. But get a good consistent pace going and work on your timing. Timing is everything. Give yourself a little bit of time to think about a pitch. You'll find yourself being more consistent. You'll be able to replay that pitch in your head. It helps. It helps. The faster you are, there's guys that call that pitch in flight, and it just causes for a rough time. Jeff?
Yeah, the tracking the ball with the eyes is so important. The timing is just absolutely critical. Remember, guys, you want to call strikes. You don't want to miss strikes. If it's a strike, you want to get it. If you determine that it's a ball before the catcher catches it and you call it a ball, sometimes you'll call ball and immediately say, oh, I just missed a strike. Your timing is so critically important. You want to see strike, 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 strike until you know it's not a strike. Slow down your timing. You'll get it right far more consistently.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add is, this year's a little bit different, but in the past, I've gone to a lot of clinics, and these are things that you need to work on and get advice from the clinics, get information to work on your positioning, your head height, and all those things. And you'll get those through clinics, and record yourself. Have someone record you work games, and you can learn a lot from watching yourself. Because the important thing is trying to do things like that just to get better. And because if you have all those things going for you, good positioning, head height tracking, and good timing, you're going to miss a lot less pitches.
I agree with all they're saying. And also for some in-game, I work a lot with Mark. And during the game, we'll talk to each other. I'll talk to my field guy every now and then and ask, is my head height where it should be? What's my timing look like? Am I quick? Am I slow? Just little things like that during the game can sometimes save you from having a bad game.
Yeah. To touch back on what Chase talked about, the videotaping. Nowadays, everybody has a video camera on their phone. Just have somebody, get a couple shots of you, a few minutes of you working, calling balls and strikes. You'll be amazed at what you can learn from watching yourself. Okay, now moving on to our next rule here, Rule 7.3, batting infractions. This first slide, 7.3.1, we covered earlier when we were talking about the strike zone, so we're just going to kind of roll right through this slide. No reason to cover it again. All right, batting infractions. A batter shall not, Article 2, hit the ball fair or foul while either foot or knee is touching the ground completely outside of the batter's box or touching home plate. Key to this is completely outside the batter's box. You see in the picture below the batter taking a swing. He's out. He's back behind. I know that's kind of the oddball one. I don't think that I've seen anything like that over my career. But the one you do see is maybe like in a drag bunt, the kid runs up, puts his foot down. The key is completely out of the box. If he's not completely out of the box, or if you don't think he's completely out of the box, then he's not. Or if you have to think about whether he's out of the box, he's not. Common sense prevails in this, especially in situations where we don't have maybe a batter's box, if you're working a JV game or a freshman game, or even some varsity games now. You don't necessarily see a batter's box put in every time. Some common sense. Jeff, anything to add on this?
Yeah, just be aware when the batter comes up to bat, where he is positioning himself in the batter's box. If he's way up front in the batter's box, kind of be aware, because this is a tough call, because you got a ball coming in, you got a pitch, you got a swing, you got a lot going on, and it's going to be hard to get this. So just be aware of where the batter is in the batter's box when he gets there, and it might help you decide whether or not you should be paying attention to it or not.
Correct. We still have our order of operations we have to deal with at the plate. We have prioritized some things. Obviously, it's important to keep the kid in the box, but there are some priorities. Go ahead. Jeff, you got something?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, like you mentioned when you were reading the slide, is sometimes those batter's boxes don't really exist. It's really tough to call a kid for being out of the batter's box when there is no batter's box, literally. So in order of importance, it's not real high up there. But like Chase said, pay attention to where the kids are when they get in the box. That will give you a tip in whether this might happen.
Batting fractions, batter should not disconcert the pitcher by stepping from the box on one side of home plate to the box on the other side of home plate while the pitcher is in position ready to pitch. This is actually the basis of a rule myth. Like I like to cover this in my classes. Batter can switch sides at any point in the count. The count is irrelevant. What's important is that the pitcher is not in position ready to pitch. Time is called. Then the kid can switch. He can do it with 2 strikes. He can do it with 1 strike. He can do it whenever he wants. He cannot do it while the pitcher's ready to pitch, in position ready to pitch. That's the important side of this. Really, that's about that on that one. Batter shall not permit a pitch ball to touch him. The penalty is the batter remains at bat and the pitch is a ball or a strike unless the pitch was a 3rd strike or a ball 4. Let's play this little video here. Okay, so in this video, it's fairly obvious the kid's got his arm around, and whether he sticks his elbow out or just leaves his elbow in place, the point is that he permitted that pitch to touch him. He did not make any attempt to get out of the way. There was no reason for him to get hit. He allowed himself to be hit. So the mechanics part of this. Oh, before we do that, anybody want to, anything on this?
Yeah, on this one in particular, because this will happen. I mean, I feel like I call this, maybe 4, 5, 6 times a game, especially, or not a game, but a year, especially with those elbow pads. Yeah, 5 or 6 times a game, but especially with those elbow pads that they're coming in there with, they're a lot more confident about sticking their elbow out or leaving their elbow in. The important thing is when you talk to the coach, you use the verbiage permit the ball to touch him, because remember, he doesn't necessarily have to make a move to get out of the way or anything. What he has to do, he cannot permit the ball to hit him, and that's how you have to explain it to the coach, because it's kind of it's a judgment call. It's your determination whether or not that batter permitted the ball to touch him or not, and that's the ruling that you're getting paid to make.
So go ahead.
Okay. I agree with Chase here, especially when Mark talked about too, is with the body armor. There's a lot more kids that are leaning a lot more over the plate, getting a lot more closer to strike zone. I mean, being coached to stay in there on that pitch. And as you said, a lot of it is with the verbiage, permit a pitch to touch him.
So from a mechanic standpoint, if you feel the batter permitted the pitch to touch him or to hit him, or the batter caused the ball to hit him, we're calling time. We're bringing the batter back to the box. The big one here is if the pitch was actually in the strike zone, we need to get a strike on that. If the batter's, after the batter's return to the box, the other part of this, after the batter's return to the box, and we're ready to put the ball in play, make sure we're giving a count. So everybody understands what the count is. It's really easy with all the confusion going on, because chances are a coach is going to be questioning this, especially if you call a strike. You're going to be getting questions from the dugout. You're going to be questions from the player as to what happened. Don't lose track of the count. Make sure you give the count again beforehand. Make sure everybody's on the same page before you restart the game. Save yourself some grief. Take care of the business you need to take care of. Anybody? Jeff? Good?
Yeah. There are times when a pitch rides up and in on a batter, and I don't think it's going to hit him, and it does. In my opinion, he did not permit the pitch ball to touch him if I didn't think it was going to hit him. Sometimes they just ride up and in. The other thing is, you may have a team in your area that's coached up to get hit by pitches. And if you have that team in your area, be aware of the fact that their players will intentionally move into a pitched baseball to be hit, and absolutely get it. Keep the kid in the box. I will even warn a kid, if I see him move that front elbow out towards it and he doesn't get hit, while the catcher's returning the ball to the pitcher, I'll say, I saw your elbow, your front elbow move out. If you get hit by that pitch, I'm keeping you right here. So don't try to get hit by it. Again, I do that at a volume low enough that the catcher and the batter hear it. Nobody else needs to know about that conversation, but I will have it.
Good. The other thing with this is I think it's really good to have a philosophy as to what you're actually going to call, what you're going to allow hit by pitch. That big looping curveball that kid just kind of stands there and takes it because it wouldn't break a plane of glass. I'm going to keep him there. But that high and in fastball, he's got nowhere to go. So, anyways, just stuff to think about on that. Move on to the next slide. Interfere with catchers throwing or fielding or throwing by leaning over the plate, stepping out over the batter's box, making any other movement which hinders the action at home plate or the catcher's attempt to make a play on a runner, to play on the runner, or failing to make a reasonable effort to vacate a congested area when there is a throw to home plate and there is actually time for the runner to move away. The penalty for this: when there are 2 outs, the batter is out. When there are not 2 outs, the runner is advancing to home, and the runner is advancing to home. The runner is tagged out. The ball remains. If the runner is tagged out, the ball remains live, and the interference is ignored. Otherwise, the ball is dead, and the runner is called out. When an attempt to put out a runner at any other base is unsuccessful, the batter is out. All runners must return to their bases occupied at the time of the pitch. If the pitch is a 3rd strike, and then the umpire's judgment, interference prevents a possible double play, additional outs. Two outs can always be awarded. Time of the pitch is an important part of interference on this. We have some videos we're going to look at here at the end of this presentation. We'll talk more about this.
And going over on that real quick on the mechanic for it, just remember it's a delayed dead ball. You're going to yell out the interference and then see how that play plays out before you decide how you're going to award things. Because if they get that out at second base or on that stolen base, if they get the out there, you're going to ignore it.
It's a good catch, Chase. Yep. Next slide. A batter shall not, if the bat breaks and is hit by the ball or hits a runner or a fielder, no interference shall be called. If a whole bat is thrown and interferes with the defensive player attempting a play, interference will be called. Probably don't see bats broken too much anymore. Maybe in summer stuff, but most high school kids, I guess I'm making an assumption on this, are now using aluminum or composite bats. The breaking of the bat isn't that big of a deal. But if a whole bat is thrown, if he loses his grip, tosses the bat, potential for interference exists. Be aware of that. In that case, the batter's out, runners return. If that interference, as usual, if that interference prevents a possible double play, you can get 2 on that. Rule 7-4, batter's out. Batter is out when the batter enters the batter's box with an illegal bat or is discovered having used an illegal bat. The infraction is discovered before the next pitch. Following the turn at bat of the player who used an illegal bat, the defense may take the penalty or the result of the play. We've had a discussion on this previous to this presentation. A bat that becomes illegal through the use of play typically may not be discovered until the batter gets in. But if it's a bat that you have removed previously for being not up to snuff, and that bat comes back into play, then we have options, and there's issues that we need to take care of. We'll come back to this. 1B, third strike is not caught provided a runner occupies first base and there are less than 2 outs. There are 2 outs or no runner, or if no runner occupies first base, the batter is out unless the third strike is caught. He's entitled to try to reach first base before being tagged out or thrown out. Threw a slide in here to talk about our mechanics involved in a drop third strike. Thought we'd go over this real quick. I've seen a lot of umpires in our area that struggle with this mechanic. We all need to be on the same page. We need to be working on this. If we have a drop third strike with less than 2 outs and first base is occupied, time of the pitch, the batter's out. Time of the pitch being movement of the pitcher depending on wind-up percent, but essentially the time of the pitch. A runner stealing at first motion of the pitcher, typically time of the pitch, constitutes first base being occupied. So you have a runner stealing, we have a drop third strike. First base is technically still occupied. Don't let a coach or a player confuse you by saying that runner was stealing second, therefore first base is open. That's not the case. It's the time of the pitch that's the key to this. When we do have this situation with first base occupied, just call the batter out, repeat it several times, at least I do, to avoid the confusion of the batter or the runner running to first base and potentially interfering in the play as a retired runner or retired batter. Be loud, be verbal. Batter's out, batter's out, batter's out. And let everybody know that you have it. Let everybody know what's going on. If we have a drop third strike with 2 outs or first base is not occupied at the time of the pitch, the batter may attempt to advance to first base. In this situation, call the non-swinging strike 3. No need to verbalize a swinging strike 3. In fact, we never really verbalize a swinging strike, correct? And or immediately clean up a check swing by going to your partner. If you have any doubt of a swing, no swing, don't wait for the coach to ask. Go to your partner, make a ruling. Don't put people in jeopardy. Your partner needs to be ready in the field for this. This is something that I actually talk in my pregame when I'm working with a new partner. I'll talk about this. Make sure he's ready to make that call. I'm going to go to him right away without delaying. Save yourself some grief. Again, if you have any doubt in your mind that there is a swing or a swing or no swing, go to your partner immediately. Left hand down first. Did he swing? Get it in motion, get it done, get it taken care of. important part of this is also do not call or signal the batters out. We have guys that'll do that. Strike three, batters out. Well, in this situation, he's not out if we have a drop pitch or drop third strike. On the drop, we're stepping back. We're giving a big safe sign. We don't need to verbalize anything. Step back, big safe sign. Be alert and be prepared. Trail the batter runner and rule out any type of interference involving the catcher or the batter that may occur. You know, ball gets away from the catcher. It's rolling around by the batter. Make sure there's no intent, no intentional interference on that, depending on where the ball goes. Be alert for that. When you do have a tag, you do have the catcher picking up, maybe chasing down the line, gets that tag. Make sure you're letting everybody know runners out on the tag or batters out on the tag. Verbalize it, let everybody know. No secrets, let everybody know what's going on. Save yourself the grief of people not knowing. Anybody? Jeff? Chase?
I think you covered it. Just answer the questions before they're asked. If you use your proper mechanics, you're doing that.
Yep. It's not a tough thing to do. It's a good habit to get into of doing these things. I mean, again, some guys, you're just bringing grief on. When you're not using the proper mechanics, you're making life hard on yourself for no reason. I mean, we're out there umpiring a game. Use your mechanics. Save yourself some grief. Chase or Mike, anything? No. All right, batters out continued. Batters out when a third strike is caught. Foul ball other than a foul tip. That's not a third strike is caught by a fielder, or such a catch is prevented by a spectator reaching into the playing area. An attempted bunt on third strike is a foul ball. Any member of the offensive team or coach, other than the runners, interferes with the fielder who's attempting to field a foul fly ball. Team playing with one less than the starting number, and that turn at bat is reached. Right, so we have 9 guys. We can play with 9. They can drop down to 8. They have to start with 9. They can drop down to 8. When that spot comes up in the order, that spot is an out. He enters the game as an illegal substitute and is discovered, or he intentionally deflects a foul ball, which has a chance of becoming fair. I think all these are pretty self-explanatory. Comments? Chase, Mike, Jeff?
No, I think it's all pretty much straightforward. I think the slide covers it all.
Okay. All right, after going through the rules, let's go through a few videos. We'll have a little bit of a discussion on these as far as how Rule 7.3 and 7.4 pertain to them, and then we'll actually get things wrapped up. All right. In this play, does the batter's actions permit or cause a pitch ball to hit him, or does he cause the pitch ball to hit him per Rule 7.3.4?
Shift on the right side, and what he's trying to do here, he's beat on the pitch, and that's the only thing he could do is stick that thing out there. I mean, his elbow is about in the strike zone.
So this is the case where we talked about earlier. See the elbow pads, but in this case it is a strike. If you notice the count, not sure if you did or not, but it is a 3-2 count. So this was strike 3. Ball is immediately dead. I don't believe there were any runners on base in this circumstance, but if there were, they'd be returning to their bases. Ball's dead. Batter's out. Anything to add?
Yeah, you have it there, and it's just to reiterate the fact that they're coming up with that elbow pad, and that's something you want to watch for. And when you say runners return, that's at the time of the pitch too. So if they were stealing on that pitch, and they're at second base, they're going to go back to first there. But this is something that we're definitely going to see more often. And we just have to make sure we don't allow it.
So another important part of this is calling the strike three. I'm hoping a lot of guys, you're going to take some grief when you call it. You're going to get some questioning, but that doesn't exclude us from calling that pitch. If it's a strike, it's a strike. Don't not call it a strike to save yourself talking to the coach. I know that I'm sure there's some guys that are thinking, yeah, right. But there are umpires that'll do that. They won't necessarily call a strike on this.
And I think it can be an easy conversation with the coach. I mean, it's time. That strike three batter's out. If the coach wants to come up, it's pretty simple. The ball was in the strike zone, and he put his elbow in the strike zone. I mean, there's not much to talk about too, so you can clean that up pretty quick. Just make sure with the way the rule is, if that's nowhere near the strike zone, you're keeping him in the box, but you have to ball the pitch.
Right. And in this case, though, we would be getting first because it would be ball four. But again, it's the pitch is what it is.
And if it's close to the strike zone, if he's sticking his elbow out, I'm going to lean on calling the strike more than the ball.
Yeah, and in that case, there's nothing wrong with verbalizing that as a mechanic. Just saying he's being awarded first base for ball four, not for being hit by the pitch.
That's right. Typically, we don't verbalize ball four, but in this case, I think it would be appropriate.
Because, again, you're answering a question before it's asked.
Yes. Yep. All right, good. Move on to the next one.
Shift on the right side, and
saw that one already. All right. Should there be penalties enforced on this play per Rule 735? This is an interesting little play. So several things on this play. Batter clearly comes across the plate. The catcher has no intent to throw to second base anyways, and he's feigning to third. Does not throw the ball. In this case, you can actually see the plate umpire signal safe that he's got nothing. Batter is out. That was strike three. And really, that's the gist of it. There was no play being made. There in no way did that batter hinder the catcher's attempt, and so we've got nothing. Jeff, Chase,
Not self-explanatory here.
Chase, Mike, anything?
Yeah, this is a situation where if he does throw that ball down to second, you're going to have interference there because of where the batter is. But with a double steal going on there, the umpire recognizes that he's faking the second, knowing that he's not going to throw that ball, and there's no interference. If there's contact there, something like that, you could have it. A lot of these batter interference calls can be pretty subjective in calling them, but this particular play, I would also have nothing, and that's why I would have nothing. You could say, what if this happened, but on this particular one, I would have nothing.
And do not have to have contact to have interference.
Correct, but it definitely makes it easier to sell when there is contact.
It does.
Just make sure on this play you are ready to answer that question, though, because you're going to get a coach that's going to come out of the dugout and he's going to say, my catcher didn't throw to second because he's in front of him. So
Right.
you just be prepared, go through what happened, and be ready to answer those questions.
Yeah, and then at the end of that conversation, you're probably going to agree to disagree with the coach. So, and then move on and play baseball.
That is correct. All right. This next play, should there be penalties enforced on this play per Rule 735? And is the batter's box a safe haven? So kind of the keys to this play. We had a little discussion before we put this presentation together. Keys to this play are we can protect one person when it comes to interference like this. This ball is clearly within range of the catcher, with catcher's opportunity to catch the ball. So we can protect him from interference. The batter has opportunity to leave the box and move and vacate and get out of the way. He doesn't. Question was whether the catcher intentionally ran into the batter. Kind of a stretch in some ways. I'm sure that was in his head. Third baseman wasn't going to make a play, even though he did make a play. Or almost, he attempted a play, put it that way. So I think the ruling on this would be interference on the batter. It's not a safe haven. He does stay in the box, but he needs to vacate. He has the opportunity to vacate, therefore he needs to vacate.
Well, especially after he hits the ball. I mean, talking about a batter's box being a safe haven, it's clearly not going to be a safe haven in this situation, because his responsibility after he puts a bat on the ball is to run to first, and he just stands there in the way. And so whether or not the catcher, like you said, did it intentionally and he might have had it in his head, that batter really has to run to first after he hits the ball.
Correct.
Him standing there is not what he should be doing, and it becomes, and the umpire here called it interference, and I definitely think that's the correct call on this play.
Jeff or Mike?
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible that the catcher may have run into the batter intentionally, but the truth of the matter is that ball was not far from where the catcher was, and he's looking up in the air trying to track the baseball. So the batter's got to vacate the box. He's got a responsibility to get out of that area and start getting down the line. If he does not do what he's supposed to, then he opens himself up to the possibility of being called for interference. And in this case, it's absolutely merited.
All right, let's move on to our last play. And it's an interesting one at that. And let's just run it. Can run this one more time. So this play is obviously a little league play, but still kind of falls into the same scenario, the previous play. What can the batter do in this situation to stay out of trouble? He needs to stay out of the way of the play. He has opportunity. I believe that he is aware of where the ball is. Not that that truly matters, but he looks and sees the ball. He needs to stay out of the play. What if he just stands in the box? Box isn't a safe haven in this case because he had opportunity to vacate, and in that case, he needs to do so. Does anything change if we have 1 out or 2 outs? It does. In this case, I believe bases were loaded. With 1 out, the runner coming home is going to be out, and we're going to send the runners back. With 2 outs, the batter is going to be out. In neither case, the run doesn't score. And this is a classic interference. Chase or Jeff?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. This is a really easy call to make. and it's a really easy call to explain if a coach does come out and question. It's just, coach, he's got to find the ball and get out of the line of flight from the ball back to the plate, and he didn't. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only argument I could see from the coach is he's going to tell you that his batter didn't mean to. And I would agree with the coach that he didn't mean to, but he still can't interfere with that play. And does that mean getting way out of the way? Sometimes that means getting way out of the way. This is kind of an interesting play by how the ball creams off that far the third baseline, because typically what the batter did there on most pass ball situations is perfect, right? But this one creamed off pretty far down the third baseline and it put him in the way. And mechanically, on the last thing, where should we be on that play? I kind of like the umpire's initial position, getting back, trying, and the key is to try to open up and see this, and maybe start around the point of the plate and then work a little bit third baseline extended. The only thing I don't like he does at the very end, he kind of steps towards the play, getting himself closer, and you kind of want to stay kind of back.
A little bit puts himself into the play.
Yeah, and let everything to digest. But mechanically, if you watch how he called time, pointed at the batter, calling him out, that looked really good the way he did that.
Agreed. Jeff or Mike, anything to wrap up with?
Nope, not here.
All right. Well, this will conclude our presentation. That's it. That's all we got. I'd like to say good luck and stay safe to everyone. Again, I'd like to thank Dan and the OHSAA for giving us the opportunity to put this together. We enjoyed it. We look forward to having a baseball season this year. If you could, for everybody to stay safe, follow the protocols when they come out, do what we're supposed to do, keep yourself safe, keep the players safe, keep everybody around the game safe.